Hello everyone, this is a real treat for me. This is my first ever Tracks of My Years, and I've got a very, very special guest. A person who we all know and all love. On paper, you go by one name, and there's only a handful of people that go by one name. But you're a man who can do everything. You're an author, a broadcaster, actor, raconteur, and obviously one of the most loved frontmen. Here he is, ladies and gentlemen. It's Suggs! Yes,
Thank you.
Yeah, Suggs, how are you?
Good, mate. Proud and privileged to join you in your first inaugural outfit, you know.
Oh, thank you. And I'm so glad it's you doing my first Tracks of My Years. We've got lots to talk about because you've been in the background of my musical journey ever since I discovered a 7-inch single. It's that simple.
Nice one, thank you. But it's funny you say that thing about single names, because I chose Suggs when I was a kid, long before I thought I was going to be a pop star. But then as time went on, you did get Sting, Sade, Shostakovich. Suddenly,
Elvis.
I was Elvis.
Come on. The Don.
So what was the single then, Vernon? Go on, what you can remember?
Well, the first one ever I bought was the theme tune to Convoy.
Oh, yeah.
Because my dad's a lorry driver, so I was always into trucks.
Big Bear, what was
Exact
it?
Breaker 19, Rubber Ducky and all that.
That's right.
But then there was a family of lads who lived at the bottom of our street called the Websters, and they were 3 brothers, and they were huge Madness fans. Now, I don't want to tell the story so early on in the week.
All right, mate.
All right, so let's get into your first track.
We'll tease that.
Exactly.
Hang on to the Websters, everyone, all right?
Exactly. So the first track we're going to play, it's a beauty. It's from Frank Sinatra. It's called A Foggy Day. Let's play it and then we'll talk about it.
I was a stranger in the city.
All right, so why have you chosen that?
Well, my mum was a jazz singer, and she used to work around the clubs and pubs of Soho, and she used to sing that song. And it was a funny old thing, you know, for people who have parents who sing. It's always slightly embarrassing. You'd be in the pub and go, oh, no, here she goes, you know what I mean? We're going to be in here for hours now. As a sort of 6 or 7-year-old looking through the letterbox. But it's a song that has a lot of sentimentality for me. And my mum ended up recording it. I couldn't find her recording of it. It's on a CD somewhere, which is in storage. But we played it at a funeral, and, you know, it just brings back memories of her, really.
There's a theme to a lot of the tunes that you have chosen, and we will play them throughout the week. London.
Well, yeah, maybe, I suppose, yeah. It's funny you say that, because we did an album called The Liberty of Norton Folgate, and we thought about having this concept album about London, and our guitarist said, what do you think all our flipping songs have been about? That's hardly a concept, is it?
But it's true. Is that a reflection on what London means to you, you know, growing up?
It wasn't a decision, but I suppose I've lived and been brought up in London and written about London. I suppose it does mean quite a lot to me. I mean, I've always said I don't think London is better than anywhere else, but it flipping well is.
Yeah. Well, it's so culturally diverse.
Yes,
there's a lot going on. It's got great history, obviously. Let's talk about the next track, The Clash. It's London's Calling. It's iconic. Another London-themed tune. Why have you picked this one?
Well, as a 16-year-old, I went down to this club called the Roxy, which was in Covent Garden, to see this new phenomenon. They were talking about punk. It really resonated with me, because up to that point, most rock and roll was people on pedestals, you know, miles up in the sky at Wembley Stadium. And all of a sudden, in fact, there was this band called Eater who were 14, all falling about on the floor in front of me. And it wasn't that necessarily the music would influence us too much, but certainly the attitude that you could just do what you wanted and you didn't have to be a musical virtuoso. It really did have an impact on us. And then The Clash came along, and what I loved about The Clash was they also had a bit of reggae in their music, which I was a big fan of even at that time. And they were just one of the best live bands I ever saw.
Were you one of those kids who always went to see the bands?
Yeah. I mean, in London at that time, and especially Camden Town where I was living, there were bands on every night. There were probably 15 music venues in Camden, and you could go out every night and watch music, and most of them were pubs, and they were free, so why wouldn't you? Do you know what I mean? Or sit indoors and watch, you know, whatever it was with whoever it was.
Yeah.
On the telly.
On the telly, yeah. And with music comes great fashion. Did the two align themselves with you as a young lad?
Yeah, well, funny enough, The Clash I remember seeing a poster of them, and it looked like they were being checked by the police. And the main thing was they had straight trousers on, as opposed to flared trousers. And that can make a big difference in your life, flared or straight trousers. I mean, at that time also, every pub had its own scene. You get a rockabilly pub, a psychedelic pub, you know, a goth pub. And so you had to sort of navigate all these different styles of teenage existence.
I've done a lot of reading about yourself. And it's quite obvious that you were, shall we say, quite cheeky at school?
Naughty boys in nasty schools, headmasters playing fools, smashing up the woodwork.
Yeah, I didn't do great at school. Yeah, I mean, I went to a very disparate school where there was a lot of chaos going on. I mean, it was where they amalgamated secondary moderns and grammar schools, and it became comprehensive schools. But they were very sort of confused at that time. Yeah,
but a lot of energy that you could feed off as a young lad.
Yeah, and a lot of great memories. I mean, I wrote my first song, Baggy Trousers, about the school that I went to, Quinton Kynaston. So, you know, if nothing else, it gave me a hit. But it's funny, I remember they had that Friends Reunited thing, and I was thinking about the people in my class, I can't remember, this is years ago now, and looking it up on the computer and realised there were none of them on there, because none of them had worked out how to use a computer. So that was the end of that.
They're probably on MySpace still.
School reunion, exactly.
You wrote Baggy Trousers about your school. When did you start writing? When did you realise you had the skill or the talent to write sonnets or pauses or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I was quite good at English. That was one of the few subjects I was any good at, and art. And then just by complete chance, I got offered to play in the band, which were called the Invaders at the time, because the singer had left.
This is the story I wanted to really get into. How did they get to you, or how did you get to them, the Invaders?
Well, I used to hang about in Kentish Town and that part of the world, North London, and there was this new youth club called the Aldenham, and there was a gang called the Aldenham Glamour Boys, and that just immediately struck me.
I've painted a picture already, Suggs.
Yeah. And he used to have, like, feather haircuts and dyed their Dr. Martens a variety of different colours. It was like watching a packet of Smarties bouncing down the road, but you wouldn't say that to their faces. Anyway, funny enough, I went to see the film American Graffiti, and I was singing as we came out, which is a film about rock and roll, for those of you who don't know. And one of them said, "Yeah, you ain't got a bad voice. Our singer's just left. Do you fancy trying out for the band?" And I'd never thought about it before in my life, but I did have a bit of charisma. And it went quite well, and then I was in the band, and it was shortly after that. I mean, we were mostly doing cover versions, and then the drummer wrote his own song, and I thought, well, if that fella can write a song, I flipping well can. And I remember I was lying on the floor of our saxophone player's Lee's flat in Caledonian Road, and just for some reason I started to think a bit like Ian Dury about writing a list of things that related to my life. And it was that whole list of things that happened to me in school and Baggy Trousers. And then I remember I got to the chorus, and I just thought it was a bit negative, so I tried to think of it from the teacher's perspective, and suddenly got this perspective that they were having just as hard time as we were. At the time, there was that Pink Floyd song, "Teacher, Leave Those Kids Alone," and thinking to myself, yeah, and how about the kids leaving their flipping teachers alone, which was the case at my school.
It's amazing because all your songs with the band, they all tell a story, don't they? They're not kind of throwaway love songs or anything like that. They're all relevant to you guys and relevant, even now today, to young people. You know, if you listen to Our House, like No, the lyrics are still relatable. It's fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know why. You know, I mean, I do a bit because our sort of heroes were Ray Davies and Ian Dury, who always wrote songs with a bit of a narrative. You know, they weren't just repetitive love songs or... But, yeah, I like a story. We've all liked telling stories. I think it's a great art to be able to tell a story within a song and still make it a popular song. But thanks, yeah.
All right. So you've chosen this, The Clash and London Calling, from a great album.
Yeah, every track on that album is iconic. Yeah, fantastic. The cover's iconic, and just really like the energy of it. And it's also about the... You know, I know there was a lot about that, but about the boredom of being a teenager at that time and just trying to find something a bit more interesting to do.
London calling to the faraway towns. Now war is I never felt so much like a life.
Choosing his tracks in my ears is Suggs, frontman of Madness, and you've just heard London Calling, the title track of that fantastic album by The Clash. Next up, you describe him as one of your greatest influences. It's Ian Dury and the Blockheads with Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll.
Sex and drugs and rock and roll.
No, you were on the same record label together, weren't you?
That's right, yeah, we were on Stiff Records. We were sort of looking around for a record label, And we were seeing all these kind of big major record companies. They didn't really have anything to say. And then we met Dave Robinson, who started Stiff. And at that time, he had Elvis Costello, Ian Dury, who was our hero then, Coaster McCall, the Pogues, so many great acts, and Mavericks. We really just fitted in. But Ian Dury had a band called Kilburn and the High Roads, which my band went to see in Kentish Town in the late 70s. And then he went on to form Ian Dury and the Blockheads. And he just was a real inspiration in his, you know, just singing in his own vernacular, telling stories. I remember somebody saying, was it Ian Hunter from Mott the Hoople said, you know, why did you write All the Way to Memphis? He said, well, I can't write All the Way to Walthamstow, can I? And Ian Dury said, no, you can actually.
It's true, because, like you said yesterday, you said that all the stories are about, pretty much the Madness songs about you and school and various stages of your life. But you listen to Ian Dury, and the guy had a tough start to life. You know, he had polio at 7, but then he didn't come to light until his late 30s. That's when he became kind of popular in popular music. It's a phenomenal story if you read about him.
Yeah. He really had a hard time. And Kilburn and the High Roads were brilliant. There's an album called Handsome, for those of you who got the time to look it up. But that did nothing. And then he kept going, and then started the Blockheads, and then that's still a little more time. He made it in the end, yeah, and a very hard life. And then very tragic, he died of cancer at the end, you know, just as if it wasn't hard enough. We had the great privilege to record a song right at the end for the first time with him called Drip Fed Fred. The tragedy of that was he was recording in the morning, and because he was so early, he'd been gone by 12 o'clock, just as I got there. So I actually missed the only performance that we shared with Ian Dury. But I love this song, yeah, great energy, yeah, great.
What I like about that song is it doesn't need to get into a descriptive explanation of sex and drugs and rock and roll, because his tone and the way that he sings it or says it, you know exactly what he's talking about.
Yeah, and then he got that very nice melodic bit, you know, keep your silly ways or throw them out the window, the wisdom of your ways, I've been there and I know what a silly way. And he's talking about that, you know, that thing of being a teenager and wanting to escape the doldrums of just working behind the desk in a bank.
Yeah.
Hey, you! Don't watch that! What?
Let me ask you about the video for One Step Beyond, right? The dancing.
Yeah.
Did you learn that, or is that just a thing?
Oh, it's a long story. I mean, Carl, the other singer in the band, his dad was an all-Irish dancing champion. He was a very good dancer, Carl. But then we started doing this thing like a train, and we called it the Nutty Train, and we kind of got... It was a bit like Chuck Berry's Duck Walk. We kind of got stuck with it in the end. And they go like every photo session.
But I ain't gonna lie, Suggs, right? There's only you guys that can do it properly, because everyone's been to a wedding, everyone's been to a birthday, everyone's been to a festival, and when the DJ drops it, everyone tries, but it looks like you've had 20 pints too many. Do you know what I mean? And I've seen many tribute bands of Madness, and no one can do it as good as you boys. I mean, I guess it's because you're the originals of doing that particular dance, but it's so good. But not only that, when you watch it, it's visually powerful, because it goes with the aggressiveness of the scene and the music. Do you know what I mean?
It's interesting you say that. Now, you just did an impression which was very jerky.
Yeah.
In fact, now I think about it, ours was quite smooth. I think because we practiced it quite a lot. But I've had enough kids come up to me and say, it's the most embarrassing day of my life. I was at a wedding the other week and my uncles got up and started dancing to a Madness track. So, yeah, we've got a lot to answer for. But...
And not only that, but you were doing it in tight jeans and Doc Martens.
Thank you. But it didn't half take it out on your thighs, especially when you were doing a photo session. They go, could you do that Nutty Train again? And ours no sound. Anyway, those days are over.
All right. We're going to move on to the specials. So we've got two frontmen who had a really tough time early on in their lives. Terry Hall had a very, very, very difficult situation early on in his life.
Which only came out later, I must say. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it's very well documented. If you don't know about it, go and have a read on the internet. Passed last Christmas in December, but the outpouring of love for Terry Hall, and then, again, the specials, was amazing.
Yeah, very, very tragic, yeah. I mean, we had the great fortune, obviously, to go on tour with them in the late 70s, the Two-Tone Tour, you know, which was the highlight of pretty much my entire musical career. We ended up at the Roundhouse with the specials, the Selector, the Beat, and then Dexy's Midnight Runners. So it was a pretty remarkable lineup of people. But Terry was a very humorous person. He also suffered from depression, but that was part of what he was. He was a very funny person and a very good songwriter and a very entertaining performer. So very tragic that he passed away, yeah. And the drummer Brad, he passed away a couple of years ago, and it's, you know, it's this point of our lives where we start to have to accept that we're not immortal, you know. But all I can say is, yeah, one of the happiest times of my life was on that Two-Tone tour, watching the Specials, who, yeah, were one of the best live bands I ever saw, if not the best.
And is there a reason why you've chosen Do Nothin? It's a beautiful song.
It's a beautiful song, yeah. And again, their first album was iconic, and you could pick any song off of that, you know, Too Much, Too Young, you know, whatever, Message to You. But this song is very poignant to me. I think it kind of sums up a lot about the Specials and a lot about what they were about, which was this whole thing of kind of lost, forlorn life in, you know, the sort of demise of what was Middle Britain, Coventry at that time.
The ska scene, was it a good one?
Yeah, great. I mean, especially that time. I mean, there's a film called Dance Craze, which they've re-released recently, and I'd kind of forgotten myself how mad the energy was. I mean, it was just post-punk, so you had that sort of slightly aggressive energy, but the kids were all getting a bit more into dancing, and it all got a bit groovier. But still, it was really wild. You know, you play places like Hammersmith and Apollo. You genuinely think the balcony was about to collapse from the jumping up and down and all that. It was great.
Do Nothin by the Specials was released as a double A side with a cover version of Bob Marley's Maggie's Farm back in 1980. Now, in my opinion, we're taking a bit of a gear change with your next choice, Stevie Wonder. And You Haven't Done Nothin.
I saw Stevie Wonder at Wembley Arena, and it was mind-blowing. You know, it's just impossible to even start about how much Stevie Wonder did, the albums that he made, the tracks that he made. But this one come to me a bit later on, You Haven't Done Nothing, which was about the same time as Superstition, and it's got that fantastic clarinet sound that he had for that little while. And the brass and everything, it's just unbelievably funky, brilliant.
As a musician, did you ever find yourself stuck in the kind of music that you were making, or...?
Well, funny enough, I remember once, now you mention it, I thought you were going to say, we tried to do a version of For Once in My Life by Stevie Wonder. Now, there are just some things you shouldn't do. Just some things you shouldn't do.
Just leave them alone.
Just, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Please.
yeah.
Please, yeah, you're going to do your own take on Stevie Wonder. No, you're not.
No.
No, ironically, that was the thing, because we were on Two-Tone Records to start with, and it was very much a ska label, and that's why we left and went to Stiff, because we thought... Not that we didn't love that music and still do and still play it very, very enthusiastically, but just thought there was going to be a little bit more to what we did. And we tried to push ourselves, whether it was, you know, Wings of a Dove with a bit of calypso or reggae or the Kinks or all sorts of different influences. So we kept trying to move for that very reason, that we didn't want to get stuck.
We're going to play Prince next.
Yeah.
But before we get into why you've chosen this, I want to ask you, have you got an extensive music collection? Were you a vinyl collector?
Yeah, I was. Yeah. Yeah, I've still got quite a lot of vinyl. Unfortunately, I got burgled about 20 years ago, and half of it went missing, as much as they could carry. But no, I'm still very much into vinyl. It's one of the few things that hasn't been chucked out of my house, you know, that I still actually possess.
But I think when you take a piece of vinyl out of its sleeve, there's something about that initial moment.
Oh, yeah.
Where you think, I remember when I bought this.
And I can't remember who said about that vinyl crackle as well. Because what you would do when you were young, you know, because you could only afford to buy one album between the five of you, so you'd have to choose. And then you'd hide the sleeve and put it on, and you just hear that crackle, and they'd have to guess what album it was. Yeah, the smell and the sound. I mean, they still reckon the sound is better than any of these digital. And we've got some lovely tannoy speakers, you know, and it just is the best thing in the world, playing vinyl, yeah. Also, that thing about albums, I know we're going to sound really boring, but, you know, you're at a start, a middle and an end, and that's how you sequenced an album. And then you turn it over and the same. But now, of course, you just flick through from one track to another, and the whole point of it was you went up and down on a sort of narrative trail, or at least in your own mind you did.
And I think when you shuffle...
Yeah.
I think it's like reading a book. Like, let's do the odd chapters first, and then I'll read the even chapters after. Do you know?
I do.
I just don't get it, because a musician has taken time. This is my story. It's in order. Why would you shuffle that?
And then if you hear a Dove one, and then the next time you hear it, you think, actually, there was something in that. Yeah, but you've got to give it a chance.
Yeah. All right, so Prince, Sign of the Times. Huge, mega artist. Very talented.
Yeah, funny enough, my wife, she made records under the name of Betty Bright, and she was the first person to cover a Prince song, When You Were Mine. I remember she went to see him live, and I can't remember I was doing something else, and I opened the front door and she literally collapsed in the corridor, like, just fainted from sort of, like, having seen the Prince. So the next time I went to see him, and he was the best live artist I've ever seen by miles, you know. he came on stage, there was a basketball net, and he did that thing, and then slam dunked it from behind, before he'd even started. And it was, just the most extraordinary live act I've ever seen.
Have you seen the clip of him playing guitar at a tribute to George Harrison?
Yes.
With Tom Petty?
Yes, all the best guitarists in the world.
Oh, man.
And then you see this little red top hat come on, and you go, who's that?
Oh, so it's outrageous.
And he blows them all off. And then just chucks his guitar in the air and walks off. Yeah,
It's like, fellas, just give me a second. And it goes all over the place on the board. It's like, wow.
The closest you're going to get to Jimi Hendrix, for sure, yeah.
Absolutely.
But this is a great track as well. Fantastic chords, great melody, brilliant, and great groove, as they say in France.
And also what we've spoken about in previous days, a great story.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, man ain't truly happy. Oh, yeah, here we go.
From the album of the same name, Prince and Sign of the Times. All right, so we're going back to the London theme, Suggs. We talked about it with Frank Sinatra and The Clash, and we've got 2 tunes back to back.
Yeah.
The Kinks and Dury London. So let's start off with the Kinks.
From the dew soaked hedge creeps a curly caterpillar.
I would imagine that I know why you've chosen the Kinks and Autumn Almanac, but you explain, please.
Well, the Kinks, very coincidentally came from the same part of the world as us, North London, Muswell Hill. Sang in their own vernacular, sang about the normal things of life, like having a cup of tea, made normal things cinematographic. And just the other night, we were just one of them where people are starting to flick through on Spotify, or whatever you call it these days. And people started on the Kinks, and this just popped up, Autumn Almanac. And to me, this is the sort of real summary of that, those sort of descending notes, and just the Kinks, just couldn't be anybody else. And just talking about an Autumn Almanac in itself is a very odd thing to write a song about. Yeah, it's funny because, the videos that we did one for It Must Be Love, where we, ironically dressed as undertakers, because I never thought I'd miss you half as much as I do. The black comedy thing. But then sometime later I saw that the Kinks did a video for Dead End Street, and they're all dressed as undertakers. And Dave Davies was dressed as an old woman. And it's just the sort of coincidence of all of that. It's just been an amazing parallel between us and them. Not that I'm comparing us to them, but they're a huge influence on us.
What are you like with everything that you've achieved?
What are you like?
I know. What are you like?
What are you like?
What are you like personally with everything you've achieved? When you meet people you admire, are you fanboy, or do you sit and talk serious music? Do you get into...
It's difficult, yeah. Of course, I'm a fan, yeah. Funny enough, we played the closing ceremony of the Olympics, and I had to leave a bit early because I wanted to get back to a party at my house, and I had the only car that was there, and Ray Davies was standing there with a carrier bag. Not that that's nothing wrong with that. I like a carrier bag. He said, where are you going? I said, funny enough, I'm going to Holloway. He said, you could drop me off on the way. I said, yeah, of course. But it is very hard to sit in a cab with Ray Davies and not just have your mind spun, But mostly, in fact, we talked about football. That's always a great leveller, isn't it? But no, it is difficult, when you meet people that you're very, very fond of.
Nice. Right, next track, Dury London, Cry Me a River.
Yeah. Well, this is a very tenuous London connection, because, in fact, she was American, but her name is London, so we'll have that. But yeah, this record, the first time I bought a house, it was a small Muse house in Camden Town, and I had no furniture, I just had a jukebox. And I only had one record on the jukebox, and it was this record. And I don't know what I thought about
That's
it.
not a jukebox, Suggs.
No, that's a record player with one record on it. Pick a record, any record, so long as it's A3. Or you're just going to hear the sound of a needle on a turntable. But I don't know, I suppose it just, I was thinking about that, the progression of your life and buying a house. And I remember we had this housewarming, even though we had nothing in it. And the only other thing I remember is that we bought all this cheap white wine and had it in the bath. And my mate had the key to the bathroom, which you had in those days. And then he went off with the key halfway through the party. So I ended up having to climb up a drain pipe to break into my own house to get some wine. Pass it through the kitchen window.
I've got a vision. Did you pour the wine into the bath, or was the wine chilling in cold water in the bath?
Roman emperors.
Right. I am Suggs!
I'm lying in the bath! Yeah. Whatever it was.
We have no used milk. We have cheap wine from the thresher down the road.
What were they called? Blue Nun. Blue Nun. Lovely, lovely. But also, I love this tune. It's got the most amazing atmosphere. And then some tracks, a bit like, fun enough, Waterloo Sunset by the Kinks just can't be covered because it's as much atmosphere as it is song. And the first time I heard it was in a film, and I don't know what film was called, but she appears as a ghost, and it was just like everything was perfect with this ghostly atmosphere.
Now you say
Julie London with the sultry Cry Me a River. And that film was The Girl Can't Help It. We've made it to the end of the week. We've had an amazing selection of tunes, and the reaction has been fantastic because we've gone from Frank Sinatra, Julie London, we've done Prince, Ian Dury and the Specials, two bands that mean so much to you. Friday, this was a curveball for me when I saw it.
Yeah.
We've got Outkast and Hey Ya.
Yeah, you got me there. I can't remember why I chose this.
Oh, fair enough.
So there's going to be a load of anecdotes.
Well, let's just put it on and then you have a think and
Okay,
we'll come
go
back
on,
to
mate.
it.
1, 2, 3, My baby don't mess around because she loves me so.
All right, there you go, Outkast, Hey Ya. Have you remembered?
Yeah, I remember now,
Right,
yeah.
OK, here we go. Go on then.
It's flipping brilliant, isn't it?
It's really that
Really
simple.
good.
It's brilliant.
But no, the energy of that guy, yeah, Andre 2000 up,
Yeah.
Outkast. And just that thing where he plays all the members of the band, but in such a great way and so, believable, fantastic. Yeah, and I suppose that is about it, really.
And we've talked a lot about, and the narrative of your Tracks of My Years has been London and telling stories. And obviously hip-hop and R&B are two, I hate to say, genres of music,
Yeah.
which are all about telling stories. Were you a hip-hop fan when it came on the scene, 84, 85?
Yeah, I was. I mean, it took a little time to get the hang of it, but we were sort of hanging about with the Beastie Boys a little bit.
Hang on a minute. Right, can we just stop? All right, let's stop. Let's edit in a record spin. All right, let's start here then.
Okay.
All right, we were hanging out with the Beastie Boys. Let's go, Suggs. Tell us about that.
Well, just we bumped into them in New York, and they were fans of ours at that time. Then they came over to London, and again they were hanging out with Mick Jones. They came to the studio where we were recording. There's a photograph somewhere. And it was just, yeah, we shared, I think, a sort of energy of music, even though there might be slightly different genres. And again, I think telling stories. So just over the years, we kept bumping into them. But yeah, that led to, listening to LL Cool J and all that. And yeah, I can't remember who. But,
Nice.
But again, you're right, and I still like some of them, the Dave, and still telling stories. Yeah, I like that a lot, yeah. And with a bit of sense of humour.
And also with hip-hop, it's young people wanting to get things off their chest, which we talked earlier on in the week about, Baggy Trousers was you at school, Our House is all about where you grew up, all that kind of stuff. But the energy when young people saw you on the screen, it was like, I want to be like that. I want the bomber jacket. I want the tight jeans, the Doc Martens. I want to, dance like I've had one too many beers and then a can of Red Bull. It was all energy that the kids absolutely soaked up.
I've talked to people before, without naming any more name drops, but who said, you'd watch Top of the Pops and then you'd almost choose, right? Do you want to look like Adam and the Ants, Texas Midnight Runners or Madness? Because every one of them looked a bit like a gang because they were so individually styled. It just became a phenomenon. I just remember that first time going around the country, seeing all the kids in Harringtons with all the jacket badges and those pork pie hats and all that, and realising that something was really becoming a phenomenon. Anyway, we still ain't talked about your neighbours, which
Websters.
you brought up at the beginning of the week, right?
Yeah, you're
Go on.
right.
I've been absolutely beside myself worrying about the Websters.
Good memory, good memory. So, Mark and Ian Webster and their younger brother, whose name eludes me, were big Madness fans. And they would have the badges that you talked about, the pork pie hats, and they'd have the bomber jacket, the Docs and the jeans. But you've got to remember, we were in Bolton. And it was like, yeah, but you can't do that because they're from down south and we're up north. I'm like, no. And I'll never forget, we were sat on my mum and dad's fence and he went, yeah, but music's for everyone. And I'm like,
whoa.
Yeah, you're right.
Philosophical.
I know.
Yeah.
And then we would listen to Madness and it was the hooks of the tunes that got you in. And then you listen to the story. Do you know what I mean? But yeah.
Well, funny no, because we talked in the week, it's just all coming back to me as it does, about that, when we used to do that dancing, the Nutty Train thing.
Yeah.
And I met this girl once who said she was going out with this fella, and I think it was up north somewhere. And he decided, to woo her, he'd put on baggy trousers. Right? Of course, such a romantic tune. And she said they're on the sofa having a bit of a canoodle, and the next thing, his three brothers come down the stairs in their underpants doing the Nutty Train, and that was the dampener that ruined it.
Yeah, but you know, we've talked about it. You mentioned also earlier on in the week that someone said to you, at a wedding when the dad started dancing and doing the Nutty Train. But it's just a thing. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. It's infectious. That's what it is. Good luck with the tour.
Thanks very much. Oh, yeah, please.
Let's talk about that because, let's be honest, that's why you're here.
Yes, exactly.
It's not farewell, is it?
No. I mean, we've done a few of those now.
Right,
we've run out. I can't do any more farewells. No, this is starting again. Yeah, we're doing a big tour starting in November, ending up at the O2. I can't remember the exact dates, but yeah, it's the C'est La Vie tour by Madness. C'est La Vie, just like, you know, this is it. This is life, not this is death, or this is the end.
Well, we're going to start in November the 30th, on November the 30th, at the Aberdeen P&J Live. And then throughout December, I mean, what a build-up to Christmas.
Yeah.
Absolutely awesome. You've got Glasgow, Newcastle, Cardiff, Nottingham, Liverpool, Leeds, Manchester, Brighton, Bournemouth, Sheffield, London's O2, and then finishing on the 16th, Saturday, at Birmingham Utilia, I think it is, Arena.
We've got the Lightning Seeds, who are lovely chaps, coming with us, and, you know, it's just perfect for us. Christmas time, everyone loves a bit of madness, which is, you know, fine with us.
And let me ask you, is it all the hits?
Yeah, it'll be all the hits. We've also just finished a new album, which will probably be called The Theatre of the Absurd. We always like to sort of liven it up with 3 or 4 new songs, but, you know, we don't want to drear people with some sort of fancy new album of acoustic jazz. So it will be all the hits for sure, yeah.
We have to talk about the last track of the week, and this is a beauty.
Yeah.
From the Flaming Lips.
Yeah.
Do you realise?
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember who put me onto this album. Something in the Machine or Yoshimi and the Funky Foo Fighters. But again, it's another album that every track I really like. And this one, I think, is a bit mind-blowing, you know. It was after the death of someone I knew quite closely, and it was about this... What it is about, that you've got to let them know before it all gets too late and all that, and try and make up your differences with people you've had arguments with. But I just love that line, you know, the sun don't go down, it's just an illusion caused by the world spinning round. I know it might sound a bit trite now, but it meant a lot to me. And I was doing a one-man show, which I've been doing for a few years, and I play this at the end, and it always gets the crowd in the sort of mood of sentimental cryingness.
It's a lovely tune.
Yeah, and it is a lovely tune, too.
I think it's one of those that you go back to, and you're right, you do reminisce when you hear it.
There's a lot of very heavy thoughts in there, but all good ones, you know. I mean, I think that's... something we all, you know, could think about a bit.
Yeah.
Is to make up your differences with people you've fallen out with.
All right, Suggs, it's been an absolute joy. Thank you so much, my friend.
Do you still see the Websters? Are they still about?
I've not seen them for a very long time, but I hope they're listening and I hope they get in touch via friendsreunited.com.
Lovely.
Is that still going? I don't know whether it is. But Suggs, it's been an absolute joy. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks, mate.
Do You Realise by the Flaming Lips, Suggs' last pick. What a great guest. And my thanks to Suggs, and as I said, the best of luck to Madness and their 13-date C'est La Vie tour. Their first in nearly 2 years, which begins in Aberdeen on the 30th of November.